Send the Regulated Industries Committee meeting to order. Good to have such great attendance today. First bill on my agenda is House Bill 844, Representative Earhart. Didn't quite get to you the other day, so you're number one on the list today. Well, I hope you learned something. Whatever you're most comfortable with. Right here on this witness, because you got people going to talk. We'll let them go up there. Okay. All right, committee members, this is in your folder. It should be in order on the top, and the floor is yours if you'll just explain it to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. HB 844 is a bill to repeal and reenact the Dietetic Practice Act, which was established in Georgia in 1981. It's not been updated since 1994, so 20 years. And I think most of the folks that have been working on this bill would tell you it is definitely time for a little updating of language in code for our dietitians in Georgia. The problem that exists, because I always like to say, what is the problem we're trying to solve? The problem that exists is that dietitians and nutritionist language in code is currently ambiguous, for lack of a better word, confusing. This law would fix that. The language in this bill is the result of collaboration between the Georgia Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and the National Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. The law will do several things. The bill does several things. It will provide updated language in the following areas. Number one, it will provide clear language regarding the standards of practice for licensed dietitians and licensed nutritionists. One of my first questions when I worked on this was, what's the difference? And I'm going to be able to tell you a little bit more about that as well. Secondly, the bill will narrowly tailor the regulation of what's called medical nutrition therapy. Now, medical nutrition therapy is the highest level of nutrition care. The purpose of it is to treat diagnosed conditions. So this is not just for general health maintenance. This is to treat medical conditions. Why is it so important that we regulate that? Because this is the highest level of nutrition care that requires the highest level of training. This is necessary to protect consumers. The bill will also provide a pathway for licensure to all qualified nutrition professionals. And one of the most important things it will additionally will do is provide clarity and guidelines as to what qualified or what unlicensed individuals like trainers, health coaches, holistic wellness advisors, what they are permitted to and not permitted to do in terms of their scope of practice. I would say that additionally, it provides clarification on the board, the new board, which is 7-member board appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate.
Does this change that board?
It does not. My understanding is it's currently 7 members. I believe currently it's appointed by the governor but not required to be confirmed by the Senate. Also, it will provide some language in here where, if you are not a licensed nutritionist or a licensed dietitian, you certainly cannot advertise yourself as such. I do have some folks here, certainly some folks who are a lot more learned on the subject of nutrition and dietitian than I am, but as in layman's terms, how it was best described to me and how I have come to understand it is both licensed dietitians and licensed nutritionists require a graduate degree, require a master's degree. The difference between the two in terms of scope of practice is dietitians seem to have a slightly broader scope of practice, dealing more with food sciences, whereas nutritionists are more narrowly focused on nutrition. What I would like to do, and I certainly want to stand for questions, but I'd like to ask Jet Tony to give you just a very quick sort of overview of how we arrived with this bill here now at this time, and just a little bit about the incarnation and the evolution of the bill. So if you'd be willing, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and Representative Earhart. This bill actually began 2 years ago as a response to legislation that was introduced in the House to do many of the same things that the Lieutenant Governor's red tape cutting initiative is doing. This legislation is extremely consistent with what you've been doing with Senator Walker regarding allowing trained individuals to do the things that they have been educated to do without having to get a license. So if you think of some of the other red tape cutting bills, then you will find that this bill is very consistent in that way. Again, the House committee was asked to look at legislation to accommodate folks in the area of wellness and nutrition counseling, individuals that are not licensed but still have valuable skills that can be provided to consumers. So what the Georgia Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics did, my clients, was to promise the House Regulated Industries Committee that they would work as long as it takes to come back with legislation that is agreed upon by many organizations nationally and by extension here in the state. And what you have before you then is legislation that is a compromise with many groups, is still protective of consumers, and assures that licensed dietitians and nutritionists will continue to be able to serve the public at the very high level of training that they are doing. Representative Earhart, we have Robin Stegall here, who has been the point person on this long initiative and has worked with the folks at the national level, and she is a licensed dietitian here in the state of Georgia.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd be willing to hear just briefly from Ms. Stegall, I would also like to mention Senator Albers. I believe she is your constituent as well.
Introduce yourself and tell us what you know about the bill.
Sure. My name is Robin Stegall. I am a private practice registered dietitian. I've worked in Roswell and served the community of Roswell and Alpharetta for 15 years. My patients are referred to me by various physicians in the area, and I work to deal with folks that have diagnosed medical conditions such as diabetes, heart disease, folks that have the need to lose some weight, but also some complexity, other medical conditions associated with that. So not just sort of simple, lose 5 to 10 pounds. I also am a volunteer for the Georgia Academy, and I am a coordinator for public policy. And 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to learn a lot about our licensure law. Prior to that time, the only thing I knew about dietetic licensure is that I had to renew mine every 2 years, and I had to maintain my continuing education credits. In the past 2 years, what we have done, per the background that Representative Jett was providing, is take a deep dive and really try to understand, is the law that was put into place 30 years ago and hasn't really seen a significant revision in over 20 years currently serving the public? Is it serving the public to the best that it can? And I think the realization, not just with COVID, but a lot has evolved in terms of the demand and the need for various levels of nutrition care. And also the way healthcare is delivered in the modern era post-COVID, in terms of virtual visits and telemedicine. And our current licensure law is lacking a lot of the updates to reflect the current realities of both what the folks in Georgia are needing in terms of nutrition care, and also how the healthcare industry has evolved. So taking in consideration all of the parties that we've received feedback from, the dietitians throughout the state, the national organizations, the various organizations that would like to provide lower level care, such as holistic nutrition providers, trainers, taking in their feedback, really working to create compromise and clear definitions and pathways so that we can get as many qualified providers out there serving the folks of Georgia. There are currently 2,800 licensed dietitians in the state of Georgia, and I think when you do the math, you'll realize that there's a lot more folks in Georgia that need perhaps not that highest level of care, that medical nutrition therapy, but we certainly have a need for prevention, for wellness, for other individuals that feel that they have the clear guidance and permission to talk about healthy eating, adding more fruits and vegetables. And our current licensure law is so vague and ambiguous, and I think it served its purpose for the times that it was enacted. But the demand and the need has changed, and the training and availability of other various levels of training and qualification has evolved. So in a briefly, that's sort of the intent and the objectives of our bill.
So what's it take to get licensed as a dietitian nutritionist?
Currently, to become licensed as a dietitian nutritionist, you have to pass a national exam. And that's in addition to having completed a supervised practice, an internship, that's 1,000 hours. We focus our training in many different areas: inpatient in the hospitals, in the ICUs, outpatient medical settings, diabetes, renal or kidney management, transplant, oncology. We also do food service and school nutrition, and we also work in the public sector in terms of the WIC programs and community health initiatives. So once you have gone through your internship, those 1,000 hours, you then pass a national exam. And then once you have sat for that national exam, you can then apply for licensure.
Does this bill change those requirements?
It does not. The only change that it makes is it actually brings the requirement for licensure up to what the current requirement is for our education and training. So when I became licensed, you had to have a bachelor's degree, and now the requirement, all dietitians graduate with a master's degree.
All right. Questions from committee members? Senator Albers, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, and it's an honor to meet a constituent. Appreciate what you're doing. I think one of the things that I want to clarify, a lot of folks will think dietitian, they might think of somebody who needs to lose a few pounds, as you mentioned. But I've got a very personal connection to the transplant world, though, and when somebody is in renal failure, which affects a lot of Georgians, there's a very specific diet that they have to be on literally to keep themselves on an organ donation list, to just keep themselves alive if they're in dialysis, as well as those who get transplanted, similar type of diets. And can you just expound on that for just a quick 30 seconds or so to express the importance of what you do more so than what people may have a perception of?
Absolutely. So what you're referring to is a renal diet, and a renal diet is one of the most complicated diets that you can ask a client to adhere to. A dietitian is required to look at your blood values or your lab values on a daily basis and weekly summaries, and then help manipulate constituents of your diet, from the carbohydrates that you eat, the proteins that you're eating, to try and keep your kidneys functioning within a certain range. It requires an extreme amount of training and specialization, and it is certainly not something that can be done by someone with perhaps a lot of great intentions, but not the depth and extent of the training of the dietitian.
Thank you.
All right, other questions from committee members? Anybody got questions for Mr. Tony or Representative Earhart? All right, thank you. We'll take this under consideration and be back with you shortly. Appreciate you being here with us. Sorry I didn't get to you last time. House Bill 300, Representative Trey Kelly. Trey, you can either go to the witness stand or over there to the podium, whatever suits you.
I'll sit here if that's all right, Mr. Chairman.
So if you give that to Mr. Kelly. I'm having Sophie bring you a copy of the sub you and I have discussed.
All right, thank you.
All right, after our last meeting, there were very thorough discussion of this. You explained it very well to us. There were a number of people that did have some ideas of how to improve it. I sorted through those and was hesitant to make many changes because you guys have worked pretty hard on this, but I will point out to you a couple of things we did. Your bill had a definition of returning the land to tillable use. I couldn't quite get my hands around that, so I have removed that requirement in this. As I reviewed through the bill, it seemed to me that that was addressed pretty well already. If you look on page 5, up starting at 88, and this is requirements of the solar facility, installers to restore the land. And by this, it says it return as near as reasonable possible, same condition before the grantee dug holes, includes reseeding it and, filling in the holes, et cetera. I thought that pretty well did it. Are you okay with that change? You and I had a conversation, just want to make sure you're all
I am.
right.
I think that's great, great change there.
Okay. The only other change I made is down there at line 103. Let me make sure. Nick, where was that other one? Where you added that subsection E? Am I right? All right, I was right. On lines 103, we add that if the parties agree that you can waive or modify the requirements to restore the land through a written notarized agreement, and any such agreement shall be recorded with the clerk of the Superior Court in the county where the property is located. Is that all right with you? We had a brief discussion only about that. I could just envision, a lot of the farmers came to me and said, well, you know, you're making them dig everything out and fill it in with similar kind of soils and replant. What if I want those concrete anchors to build a barn on or something later, and I don't want them taken out? And I'm like, well, that makes sense if you all agree to it, because, by the way, this is to protect that landowner, have their land restored. Are you okay to allow that to be waived if the landowner and the solar facility are both in agreement and it's put in public records?
And are you envisioning this being a separate agreement or in the individuals, the first
Separate agreement.
I like it
At
being in
the
a,
end,
I like it
yeah.
being in a separate agreement at the end, just because I don't want someone who just isn't, kind of enticed by going into this to kind of just be willing to do whatever it takes to get the agreement to just waive all their kind of remedies. So I like it at the end, the way you describe it. I'm fine with that change.
Questions from committee members? I think we've heard all the testimony in this one that we need. I didn't have anybody sign up to testify on it today. All right, in that case, anything you'd like to add, Representative?
Always enjoy having the opportunity to work with you. Appreciate your work to take a good bill and make it even better. So I always enjoy that opportunity.
Well, it's the pleasure of the committee.
Do pass with the changes.
Got a motion do pass by committee substitute, and that will be LC 550300S. Is there a second? Second from Senator Dolezal. Any discussion or proposed amendments? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. And are there any opposed, like sign? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Do you have a sponsor in the Senate to carry this for you?
Well, I was hoping, since you perfected it, I was hoping that maybe you would be willing to continue advancing on our progress.
People are sometimes scared to ask me to carry it because I might just perfect it on them, before it hits the floor. But this one's already ready for action, so I will be glad to carry this for you. Thank you and appreciate your time with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the
All righty.
committee.
House Bill 1344, Representative Dempsey. Behavioral Health Coordinating Council. This is going to look familiar to many of you. I think we've had this subject matter in a Senate bill. Tell us about it.
You have. You've had this exact language, actually. Senator Kirkpatrick presented it to you. It's the agency legislation from DBHDD this year. It simply does four things. The first, it amends the membership of the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council to help with the challenges they're seeing in quorums by allowing appointed members to delegate proxies to attend meetings. It also removes two reporting requirements that have become duplicative due to newer initiatives created in House Bill 1013 and implemented by the department. And finally, it grants the Board of Professional Counselors, Social Workers, and Marriage and Family Therapists the authority to waive certain experience requirements for out-of-state applicants who are applying for licensure in Georgia. It cuts red tape and is another step forward toward increasing the number of behavioral health professionals we have across Georgia.
Questions from committee members? Senator Kirkpatrick, do you want to speak to this bill? It's sort of your bill. You don't have to, but if you want anything to add.
I think Chairman Dempsey did a great job with it.
All right.
There is an amendment floating around.
All righty. I do appreciate you showing that to me in advance. What is, if there's no questions, what's the pleasure of the committee on this bill? Got a motion do pass by Senator Albers. Is there a second? Second, Senator Harbison. Any discussion or any proposed amendments?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment, please.
All right, hang on, let me light you up there. Senator Albers, you have a proposed amendment.
I do, in great teamwork between the two chair ladies here. This will be Amendment 52003. It's going to be adding on lines 38, 39, and again on 41, the Commissioner of Veteran Service, as well as corrections. And then after line 44, in addition to the state school superintendent, we'll also be adding the chairperson of the State Board of Pardons and Paroles.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward to have a good, comprehensive mix of folks on that board.
All right. So that's conforming to our floor amendment in the Senate on Senator Kirkpatrick's bill and adding the.
It'll be identical.
Okay. Got a second to the amendment, Senator Dolezal. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of the Albers amendment, raise your hand. Any opposed? Senator Lucas, you with us?
I'm with you, brother.
You a yay or a nay, or are you paralyzed? All right.
I'm in limbo.
Well, all right. You go over there and do the limbo. He's a yay, Cindy. Put him down. All righty. I got a little amendment there that's been approved. I think I don't believe we voted the bill yet, so let's take the bill, HB 1344, as amended. Discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. There you go, Luke. Any opposed? All right. It passes. Do you have a sponsor? I'm hoping Senator Kirkpatrick.
Absolutely.
All
It
right.
is Senator Kirkpatrick.
We will move that on to rules. All right, and I'm going to take them out of order in honor of my cohort in the House, Representative Powell, House Bill 809. You still with us there? All right. This is the last one in your folders, and it is the original version on occupational therapist dry needling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen of the committee. It's always my pleasure to come to this committee. I thought for a minute when I came in and y'all were talking about dietitians and fat folks that I was going to be the poster child for them, but as not, I'm moving on to another bill. Before you have HB 809. This is the occupational therapist dry needling bill. Currently, occupational therapists, they have an undergraduate degree, they have a 2 years master's degree. They do 90 hours of foundation and postgraduate instruction on modalities. They have 26 hours of other training that deals postgraduate instruction on dry needling. Now, that seems to be a misnomer to this, because I understand there's some folks in the acupuncturist business that are concerned this is getting into their business. Well,
A
it's
bunch
not.
of them. They've been coming to see me for about a month now. Tell me
Well,
about
I
it.
mean, it's, as we all know about healthcare issues, it's got more to do with turf wars and money than it does anything. But we're looking, and what we're doing in this is doing something for those people who use occupational therapists. This is in no way akin to acupuncture because they don't get into the organs. These folks get into muscles, and that's what they're trying to do, quite simply to get knots out of muscles. And you don't need to go to an acupuncturist to that. This doesn't have anything to do with a lot of those medical arts that they do. And that's quite frankly, it would allow these folks to do dry needling. They have been doing it for quite a while, and then the Attorney General's office brought an issue when they were asked about it, and they said we need to basically put it in the statute. Physical therapists use dry needling today, so this is just a step forward to let occupational therapists do it. As I'd said before, this doesn't get into putting needles into organs or anything like that, only into muscles where there's these knots that would come up.
How in the world did you get interested in this topic?
You know, I've done everything from marriage counseling to
Yeah, that's what I've
some
always
of the
fascinated.
god-awfulest things, but I reckon they figure I had experience with some issues like that. And but you know, I was asked, and I don't have enough sense to say no to good folks when they're looking for an author.
Any committee members have questions for Chairman Powell? All right, well, you have drawn quite a bit of attention, not from this committee, but from the public. We got a list of 7 or 8 people who want to testify. If you're okay with just sitting there, because we may have to interrupt and ask you a question or give you a chance to rebut anything that's not accurate to you, we're going to go ahead and call some testimony. Mark Schwartz, Georgia Association of Acupuncture something medicine. If you would take that podium up there so we can have you mic'd up. Asian medicine, okay.
I'm going to speak in just a moment, head over right over there. And, but first minute or two of this, I'm just going to turn my computer around and let it face you all. And it only takes 2 minutes to cause a pneumothorax. That's someone's needle going into someone's lung.
You are not mic'd up and nobody at home can hear you. When you get ready to testify, go take that podium over there in the corner and tell us your name, who you work with, and what your thoughts are on this bill.
My name is Mark Schwartz. I'm here representing the Georgia Acupuncture and Asian Medicine Association, as well as the 2 other acupuncture associations here in Georgia. What you have in front of you there playing, it's just a 2-minute video, and it is a person who teaches dry needling to a group of, would teach it to physical therapists or would teach it to anyone who is willing to pay for the weekend class. And you can see it takes a couple minutes to cause a pneumothorax. I did just want to clarify. Representative Powell said that the occupational therapists needle organs. I'm sorry, that they do not needle organs. We definitely don't needle organs. We only needle muscles. Yeah, so we don't needle organs. Needling organs would be really dangerous. What I wanted to say here today was this all kind of began in 2011. In 2011, at least 5 or 6 of people on the committee here voted to give dry needling, add it to the scope of practice to physical therapists. And when they did that, when they added it to the scope of practice there, a lot of things were not in place. That was 2011. In 2016, the American Medical Association would put out their position paper, and that American Medical Association position basically says that dry needling is indistinguishable from acupuncture. So the AMA says dry needling is indistinguishable from acupuncture. A equals B, no question about it. In Georgia's Medical Practice Act, there's a statement that says dry needling is a technique of the practice of acupuncture. So the AMA says dry needling is acupuncture. Georgia says dry needling is a technique of acupuncture. The AMA also said that that dry needling is it said 3 things. It said dry needling is acupuncture. It's indistinguishable. It said that dry needling is an invasive therapy. So, you're putting a needle into someone, you're breaking their skin. That's an invasive therapy. The third thing the AMA said was that for anyone who's not a physician or a licensed acupuncturist, the AMA has recommended that that training for anyone who wishes to do dry needling be benchmarked, be equal to that of a licensed acupuncturist. Other things that were not available in 2011, and they were not available, I don't believe Representative Powell knew about it when he brought the bill to the House, was the numerous position papers. Josh, can someone just help me to hand some things out, or anyone? Yeah.
We don't permit that. That
Okay,
needs to
sorry.
be done before the committee meeting, take them to 4:32.
I understand.
And Cindy will distribute them if I
Sure,
approve.
I understand.
Sorry.
So other things that that were not in the hands of Representative Powell and the House when they voted, position statements from the American Academy of Medical Acupuncture. Those are medical doctors that practice acupuncture, and they basically say the same thing. Dry needling is acupuncture. Acupuncture is dry needling. You need more than 26 hours. Sorry, I didn't mention that. It's 26 hours that occupational therapists would like to do acupuncture, or they're calling it dry needling. Everyone's, our side believes it's the same thing. 26 hours for the upper body. What's in the upper body? Your head, your brain, your lungs, everything's in the upper body. 6 hours, study from a book, then go. Take a weekend class. You too can do acupuncture. A medical doctor who, yes sir, 26 hours, one weekend. That's upper body. If you want to do the lower body, you need to take an additional weekend class. A medical doctor in Georgia who wants to practice acupuncture. Remember, dry needling is kind of acupuncture. A medical doctor who wants to practice dry needling or acupuncture needs to take a 300-hour class. 300 hours. Imagine all of the more invasive therapy and training that a medical doctor has. 300 hours. And they want 26. And for us, licensed acupuncturist, at least a master's degree in Chinese medicine, about 1,400 hours of training that's just specific to acupuncture. And the occupational therapists believe that a weekend will be safe. Serious injuries have happened in Georgia, including Rabun County. A 70-year-old woman had pneumothorax from physical therapists doing dry needling. Pneumothorax, someone punctured her lung. A physical therapist punctured her lung. And we have a list of, another 12, 13, 14 serious injuries, including pneumothorax, spinal cord injury, infection, et cetera. So in 2011, you all who voted for dry needling for physical therapists, and I believe Representative Powell, when he brought this bill for occupational therapists, you didn't have these position papers. You weren't aware about these serious injuries. Another position paper, the American Academy of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation. These are physicians that specialize in treating pain. How do they do it? With needles, okay? Same position, dry needling is acupuncture. Those who are not acupuncturists or physicians, please have equal training because A equals B. I have a letter from a physician who is that kind of doctor, a physiatrist who specializes in treating pain, opposing HB 809. I have a letter from an emergency room doctor here in Georgia opposing, and she's explaining what a pneumothorax looks like and what she needs to do to help save that person's life. On last Monday, I spoke to Senator Ben Watson from the Health Committee. I'm aware that he, like nearly everyone else in 2011, yes, voted dry needling, physical therapy, okay. But same thing, he's a physician. He didn't have all these position papers in front of him. He didn't know about the serious harm that could be done. That conversation went positively. On Thursday, myself and a group of others went to the Georgia Composite Medical Board. For those of you who don't know, obviously the medical board is where a physician gets their license. That's where we get our license from as a licensed acupuncturist. And we understand that Kimberly M., who is the Deputy Director and Legal Officer, she'd very much like an opportunity to speak to Representative Powell and Chairman Senator Calcert to relay the medical board's concern and their thoughts about this.
Save them some time then, don't ramble on too long.
Yes. Another piece of paper that if Representative Calcert wishes, can be shared. It's the vast differences between what an occupational therapist and what a acupuncturist would need to do for training. A common thing that is in this bill, it's going to say that, we're not going to teach these people acupuncture. They're occupational therapists, and we're not going to teach anything about acupuncture. I have 5 photos from these kind of classes, and they are drawing the lines of the acupuncture points and the names of the acupuncture points on the surface of the skin. I have pictures from these same classes proposed that an occupational therapist would take, and they're using electric stimulation. To use electric stimulation, you need to retain the needles. You need to leave them in. Dry needling from a physical therapist or an occupational therapist makes the claim that they put the needle in, they stimulate it, they get a certain sensation, and then they take the needle out. Well, you can't do electric stimulation and claim that you're doing dry needling. If you're doing electric stimulation, you're definitely doing acupuncture. So the bill states that they're not going to learn acupuncture. The other side is going to say, like Representative Powell said, oh, this is scope practice. It's an issue of scope. Well, I think the medical side would say this is scope creep. This is a profession that helps a lot of people. Dr. Kirkpatrick said, as a hand surgeon, a lot of positive things to say about an occupational therapist. But really, as their scope of practice, they're not trained to do any invasive therapies. Representative Powell said, they're going to take this 26 hours. But remember, a doctor has to take 300 hours. They said, Representative Powell said 90 hours, 90-hour class. That's to do any kind of modality. That's not a new extra bar raised to add to do dry needling. And also, other side's going to say, oh, well, it's not acupuncture. And physical therapist, occupational therapist will claim, well, we're not here talking about qi, we're not talking about yin and yang, we're all medical, we're all scientific. And I have to, I'm really, it's kind of offended by it, but also the fact is that the matter is that the physical therapists don't know the history of their own dry needling, okay? If I'm talking to last Friday, I treated a fertility doctor. When I'm talking to this fertility doctor, I'm not talking about qi, I'm not talking about energy. I'm talking to him about tibial nerves, femoral nerves. I'm talking to him about L2, L5, sacrum. I'm talking about things he understands because that's the language that all medicine is in. Chinese medicine, how do we locate these points? Totally in reference to bones, muscles, tendons. Another brochure, it's acupuncture research. We're not talking anything about energy or qi, yin or yang. Chinese medicine is thousands of years old. We're not static. We move with the times. Part of the history that they don't know, physical therapist, occupational therapist, the person they revere, they love the most, it's Dr. Janet Travell. Dr. Janet Travell, she was White House physician for John F. Kennedy. She wrote this huge book on dry needling. In around 1942, she coined the term dry needling. She came up with the term dry needling. She writes this massive book. It's all about dry needling. There's evidence in history that she's talking to physicians that are doing acupuncture. She's talking to acupuncturists that are practicing acupuncture. It's very obvious that her work, it comes from doing, it's derived in acupuncture. The thing that everyone doesn't know is that in 1991, Janet Travell writes a letter to the New York Medical Board. New York Medical Board asking them what? Please oppose physical therapists doing dry needling. Okay. And this is the person who, this is their Bible, this massive 2 volumes.
Let me get you to wrap up here because you're cutting off a lot of opportunity for all these other 7 people that would like to speak that are not going to have time if you go on too much longer.
Yes, sir. That's what I want to say. Okay. So my ask is that you oppose this bill, and sure, there's 4,000 of them, and there's less than 300 of them, 300 of us. Sure, they have a lobbyist and money to get this through. Sure, it might hurt some of our businesses a little bit, but if you're a chiropractor, you wouldn't want anyone taking a weekend class and doing spinal adjustments because you'd hurt someone. If you're a lawyer, you wouldn't want someone taking a weekend warrior shop because you'd hurt someone. So it's really to protect the public.
Would it fairly summarize your objections is that you don't think this provides for enough training for an occupational therapist to become competent in using dry needling techniques?
I think all the standard position papers that are out there suggest that anyone who wishes to do dry needling who's not a medical doctor should have the same level of training as a licensed acupuncturist. Are your
acupuncturist medical doctors?
I'm a licensed acupuncturist. I hold a master's degree and a doctorate in Chinese medicine.
Okay. Do you have a MD degree?
No, sir. I'm not a medical doctor.
And how many acupuncturists in Georgia? That you are licensed, correct? How many
licenses? Our license comes from the medical board, the same as a medical doctor, though we're not medical doctors. Though there are medical doctors in Georgia that practice acupuncture. 275 that are currently licensed and practicing.
And since 2011, when occupational therapists began to be able to do dry needling, has that impacted your profession? Do you have fewer now than you did then, or are they competing against you?
Me personally, not at all.
Okay, good.
So
all right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being with us today. I don't see any questions. Let me move on down the list. Azure Dwan, if I'm pronouncing your name right, try my best, okay? Will you get that, your computer? Thank you.
Good afternoon, senators and audience. My name is Ezra Duan, and I represent the Chinese Acupuncture Alliance of Georgia. So Mark has made a lot of good points. I would like to add several points in addition to his speech. First of all, in the state of Georgia, it has a stricter law than the other state. After graduation, if you want to get a license in acupuncture, you still need 1 year of supervision for postgraduate, even when you pass the board exam, the national board exam. And then within that 1 year of supervision period, the practitioner need to see 100 new patients and complete 500 patients altogether to pass the bar and then get the license. So it's stricter than just getting the 3 to 4 year master's degree. The second point I would like to make is, after we saw this bill, the 3 associations started a joint petition so that if there is a hearing, we can show the senator and the public. And so in about less than 3 weeks, we gathered 2,100 signatures. Among those, 700 are paper written, means we have patient and then, and the friends and signing this. I will tell you what's the people's reaction. Some of them are really astonished when they look at the bill, like 26 hours and 90 hours. What? And then some of them are really angry. And I do have patients that are chiropractor, and I show him the petition, and she asked me, so do you allow chiropractor to do acupuncture? Then I look at her in her eyes and say, if I take a weekend class, like 26 hours, and then I said, well, I can do a neck maneuver. Do you allow me? And she said no, so she signed the petition. And some of my patients are angry when they sign the paper. They said, well, how can they do this to us?
Well, wait a second. Your patients aren't required to go to a physical therapist. If they like you, they just keep going to you, right?
Well, okay. I have some patients come to me and then they say, well, they have tried dry needling, they didn't like it because it's painful. And the painfulness is coming from lacking of formal training. That's one of the keys. So it's not a money issue. It's really a public safety issue. Yeah, and also if you want to, look at it, if you want to go over it.
Thank you for sharing. Well, it's probably a good point, and I've got some more. So have you pretty much told us what you wanted to share?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I oppose the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so both of you have made comments that you have certain documents or papers that you would like to share with us. So the way we do that in this committee is we always publish our schedule the day before, so everybody knows we're going to be here and the topics we're going to discuss. If you have any informational materials or letters of support or opposition, bring them to my office at 4:32. Ideally, first thing in the morning on the days we're going to have the hearings, because we then will make copies for you, or you can bring us copies, and if I think they're relevant and informational and of assistance to the committee, we will place them in our folders, so they'll be there for us. We're not going to vote on this bill today, so several of you have already mentioned that you have some additional documentation you would like for us to consider. If you would bring that by tomorrow, then we will review it and decide whether to have it in the folders or not. Chairman Powell, I would plan to vote this bill on Thursday or have it available for action.
I might make a comment.
If you do want to respond to some of those comments, you can. I've got about 4 other people after that, and then we'll wrap up on this.
And would you rather for them to go ahead and speak, and I'll make a...
Well, if you got something fresh on your mind that's just said that you feel like you need to
Sure,
rebut now, you
I'd like-
can. I could see your body language there, and I don't want you to
The
you know,
advantage
blow a
of-
gasket or
the
anything.
advantage of
You-
us knowing
yeah,
each
so
other
this-
pretty well.
That's true.
And I listened to the first gentleman talk, and you know, occupational therapists don't proclaim to be acupuncturists. Neither do physical therapists. A lot of comments was made about 2011 when we passed legislation to allow the physical therapist. Well, there's been no hue and cry since then, because that was part of their scope of practice. They've been very successful, the same way occupational therapists will be if they have this tool in their arsenal for treating their patients. 275 licensed acupuncturists. I've been to an acupuncturist before, and I will proclaim that they do pretty good. Because when I had knees replaced, then acupuncturists worked, but I had to go all the way across the state. You go into the rest of Georgia, you don't have a lot of acupuncturists in this state, and a lot of people are distrustful for them to start with. I'm not that distrustful because I believe in these arts, but I don't believe they're the only arts. When I heard the comments about the AMA and the docs and all of that, I'm hard-pressed to believe that a licensed physician can't put a needle in you to do something, to take a knot out of a muscle. So I'd refute what they had said about that. Quite frankly, I go back to my original statement. When we're dealing with a lot of these issues amongst medical practitioners, including acupuncturists, it's a turf war. I don't want them to think that the physical therapist or the occupational therapist are by any way intruding on their turf. They do a whole lot more. There's a whole lot more to acupuncturists than just the use of those thin filament needles. They have a lot of other training. They deal with a lot of different extremities the way that the Asian arts do. So that being said, I would refute what had been said by the gentleman up front, and this is simply a process, and they don't go into organs. They simply stick to where you have their patients would have knotted up muscles to get the knots out of them. That, Mr. Chairman, is my comment, and I look forward to the next meeting.
We'll continue. You bet,
Thank you.
Senator
Mr.
Harbison.
Chairman, if this bill passes, would it have the effect, I'm hearing the 26 hours and the 3 and 4 years or whatever the acupuncture have to go through. Would this have the effect if they are looked upon as a form of acupuncture? Would that reduce their level of requirement in order to gain that acupuncture license?
I do not see occupational therapists with what they've gone through to be licensed as an occupational therapist. They aren't trying to achieve an acupuncturist qualifications. They're basically just doing what they do in occupational therapy, and that's to relieve pain and to get people up and moving and get back into their workplace or their normal life.
Yeah, okay, I'll yield. I'll talk to you later.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Dolezal, you're recognized.
Chairman Paul, I thought I heard you say at the start of your presentation, I just want to clarify. Did you say that physical therapists were previously allowed to do dry needling, but that was taken away recently, or did I misunderstand what you were saying?
You did not hear that
Okay.
correctly. Physical therapist, as the gentleman had to refresh my memory, this legislative body passed a law in 2011, I believe is what he said, where we allowed physical therapists to do dry needling. And there's been no comment to that. You know, I would also say that this bill passed unanimous in the House. There was no discussion in the committee. Nobody came forward in the committee. We have doctors in the House, just like you do in the Senate. And if the doctors had raised any issue, and God knows everybody in this room knows that if the docs have an issue, they're going to raise an issue about whatever their genre is or any issue to that, they're going to raise it. No issues were raised by any of the medical practitioners in the House, and I haven't heard from anybody else.
All right, follow up.
I'm sorry, but so Can you tell me again what happened in 2011? What's the state of play currently?
State of play is physical therapists are allowed to do dry needling.
Okay. And what you're doing is allowing occupational therapists
Yes,
to do it.
yes.
What's your response? The one thing I haven't heard you respond to that they were contending is that this notion that dry needling is acupuncture, acupuncture is dry needling. How do you respond to that?
Well, I really can't respond to that. I mean, it's both using a needle basically to relieve, or in acupuncture, as I understand, they can use manipulated needles somewhere to change the flow of energy in the system that in the Asian arts is supposed to be a healing art. But but in the use of dry needling, it's a specific, just in the extremities, not in the organs. But if you have a knot in a muscle, something that needs to come, then that's what dry needling is for.
Thank you.
All right. I can't pronounce it. So I got somebody from the Korean Acupuncture of Georgia. If you want to come up here and tell us your name, since I can't read it, I'd like to put you in that podium, please. Mr. Cho?
If I might, I'm going to dismiss myself so that y'all may concentrate.
That'd be just fine, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, and also committee member senators. I'm very nervous right now, so please understand my. One of the things that the Representative Powell mentioned that they are putting the needle on the muscle, but what's next to muscle is organ. If you just put needle 1 inch, even half an inch on your chest, you can cause a pneumothorax. If you put a needle on your neck, that causes some of the very important symptoms of a nerve, pinched nerve or symptoms. Right next to artery. If you just put half an inch, you have an artery puncture. It's very dangerous. If you just go up from the low back, just go half an inch to 1 inch above, you can puncture kidney. So he's saying that it's safe. No, it's not safe. It's right next to organ. We have to be very careful not to puncture the organs. That's how we train all these hours. And frankly speaking, I have my continuing education hours about 1,000 hours up to now since I studied acupuncture, 2000. And so it's just not safe to put needles to someone else with only 26 hours of education. I love Georgia. I love Delta. I only fly Delta. Imagine if you just allow someone, a gamer who has 26 hours of experience at Flight Simulator, and allow that person to fly Delta airline. That's what dry needling is to OT and physical therapists.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
I need to hear from Kendall Brock Hunter.
Hello, thank you for having me here today. I am Kendall Brock Hunter. I'm an occupational therapist, and I serve the North Georgia area in White County. I've been an occupational therapist since 1989, a long time. And so with that, there's been a lot of transition as far as, the scope of practice and the things that we do. And what I'd like to tell all of you as acupuncturists, we are not, this isn't a turf war. We're not here to take your patients, serve your patients. The dry needling, and we never say we do acupuncture, we do dry needling. And this is an adjunct to our treatment, just as our other physical agent modalities, as manipulative tasks that we do, manual therapies and so forth. And as I said over there and was listening, 26 hours, that's 26 hours of training of the dry needling technique. And we work in the clinic with other therapists. But what brings us to the table that we know where the organs are, we know all of the structures that you're speaking to, is because we take gross anatomy, neuroanatomy, anatomy and physiology. This all is within our training. And many of us, me in particular, and one of my colleagues here, we are upper extremity specialists. So we do our, it's now a master's and doctorate degree, but on top of that, an additional 4,000 hours of training in the upper extremity, board certification, and then we're able to treat the upper extremity. So we have such a skill set, and I feel as though we really can help our patients. I mean, I'm treating patients with all types of musculoskeletal disorders, from the tendonitis to amputations to spinal cord patients, and they need this technique. They need for us to be able to do this. And I'm in North Georgia. I'm in White County. Where am I going to send somebody for? Well, acupuncture isn't what they need. They need dry needling. And you know what? Last week, I found someone that did acupuncture because I told my patient, you know what? You need a different approach. You don't need dry needling. That's not what you need. You need acupuncture. So, it's apples and oranges, people. It's not the same. It's not the same thing.
Help us out with the training. It's me. Help us out with the training you have to get to be an occupational therapist before you get your dry needling designation, I'll call it.
Okay, so it's you have your undergraduate degree.
You have to have an undergraduate degree.
And then you go to you have to apply and be accepted to an occupational therapy program.
And how long do those take?
And that's a master's degree or doctorate degree. That's all you can do. Now it's no longer a bachelor's degree. And then on top of this, in order for the dry needling, you have to complete.
I'm not worried about that.
Well, the 90 hours of physical agent modalities in order to then, which is also training in modalities that with electrical stimulation and those kinds of things, and then we can apply for the 26.
Do you know whether or not acupuncturists have to get a graduate degree like you did? You don't know? Okay. And then after doing all that occupational therapy training, you got to go in an extra 26 hours to be permitted to do dry needling.
Correct.
Okay.
And then you'll be
Well,
supervised in the clinic. And one interesting thing you all were talking about, doctor, when I did my dry needling class for certification, I went with the doctor. He was on the medical board here in Georgia, and we went together in Arizona. And we did it together because he wanted to see what dry needling was about, and then he, wanted to ensure that we as therapists are capable of doing this practice, and certainly we are.
So your practice is hand and upper extremity rehab.
Yes.
Are you a physical therapist?
I'm an occupational therapist.
Okay, well, so how can you do dry needling now?
Well, that's a good point. I was able to do dry needling because it wasn't designated yes or no in our law, but as of a few weeks ago, I guess it was, the AG's office had said we are no longer able to do dry needling. And just last week I had a patient that had an order from a physician for me to do dry needling, and I told her, I'm sorry, I can no longer do that. And as an occupational therapist, you can't just go PTOT. We'd have to get a whole new order from the doctor. So right now the patient is not able to get this treatment, though I'm capable of providing the treatment. Just because we're in this waiting place right now.
I think we might have just figured out why we have this bill. Yep. Okay, you ask enough questions, folks, you get to it. All right.
Thank you.
Tom Bauer, let's hear your views. I know you've been engaged in this for some time. You are here for the Georgia Occupational Therapy Association.
I am, yes, sir.
All right.
I will try to be brief. I almost don't know where to start with some of this. You have some things in front of you, and I'm not going to repeat them, but what the previous testifier said, it is apples and oranges because acupuncture is a Chinese orientation, and I'm not knocking acupuncture. It's a different approach. Dry needling is more of a Western approach and is more recent. Senator Dolezal, your question, there is an overlap in lots of scopes of practice. PT, OT, the OT scope of practice, when I do advocacy training and talk about scope of practice to OTs at their conference, I show them a chart where there's the word cognitive is in our scope of practice. Therapy, this and that. But we don't end up being psychologists, but there's just a lot of overlap. As Representative Powell said, the PTs have been doing this for a while, and there's been no hue and cry. There's not been serious problems. The next to the last testifier was talking about the neck. We're not talking about the neck. We're not talking about the back. This bill clearly says the training is in upper extremities and lower extremities. If it's not clear enough, we'll be happy to offer an amendment to that effect.
And that is referencing arms and legs.
That is correct, sir.
All right.
It has nothing to do with, their examples are the pneumothorax. We're not talking about a chest. We're not talking about the spinal cord. And they're just things that are different. And the training that's here, and just to correct a little bit, we did talk to the medical board. They came over and talked to Chairman Powell and us, and their major concern was that the training be on par with the PT training, and the PT training for dry needling is postgraduate 50 hours. This would be 46 if you did upper and lower extremities. So there's really a 4-hour difference from what the PTs are saying. I'm a little baffled sometimes with did a little bit of research, and I want to read some of the continuing ed topics that are from the association. I didn't write the association down, but it's gastroenteritis with Western and Chinese medicine, being with the dying, heart masters over spirit and charity, leaky gut syndrome. They're worried about us coming over to do something that we're not talking about that, and we're certainly not getting into the types of medical things like that. I'm a little bit upset with the previous person that said that it's a painful procedure because you don't have the right technique. I myself have gotten dry needling and from a PT, and I don't even feel the needle going in. It's when you hit that that trigger point and you get a twitch. And then they leave the needle in, and that has helped me a good deal. I don't want to belabor the point. In your folder, I've got some quotes. The Mayo Clinic has said that dry needling is a safe technique. The Library of that's a mistyping. National Medicine Library. Complications are rare. You might get a red spot, you might get a little bleeding, but we're not talking about lungs. We're not talking about backs. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit too emotional here. But
no, that's okay. So let me ask you this. So help educate us. What's the difference in a physical therapist and an occupational therapist?
Well, as I said, there is some overlap. One of the things that you pointed out, occupational therapists do tend to work with upper body, but not the upper body the gentleman was talking about here, the neck and everything else.
They're getting people able to go back to work, right?
They are.
Rehabbing folks from injuries so they can work again.
Well, as the previous testifier said, it's not macrame and things like it was 45 years ago or 50, 100 years ago or whatever. The function is part of it, but they do hand therapy, carpal tunnel therapy, and I would guess, you can correct me, but those are probably things that you might use for dry needling for.
Are your people doing dry needling now, your occupational therapist?
No, sir, because it was unclear whether it was in the scope of practice.
Ms. Hunter's breaking the law when she said she's been doing it?
No, sir. It was unclear, and so she had been doing it. And Rob McClellan from the licensure board is here. They asked, I asked Representative Powell to put the bill in at the end of the last session, saying we're waiting to hear from the Attorney General. If we don't need it, then we won't pursue
So
it.
why has he got any say so? What's the Attorney General got to do with the practice of medicine or physical therapy or occupational
Well,
therapy?
they generally, the licensing boards do ask scope of practice questions.
So they ask his opinion, do you need to have to be a physical therapist to do dry needling? And he gave her an opinion here recently.
Rob, you want to tell, Mr. Chairman, he might be able to tell you what.
We'll get to him. Do you know? I mean, you're the one that asked Alan to proceed with this bill.
I know that the OT licensure board asked the the Attorney General, is it within the scope of practice?
And what did he say?
He said that they thought that it should be specifically, he didn't get into what their training was and all that, but he said to be able to do it, he would recommend or advise that it be mentioned in the law as it was for PT and acupuncture.
Gotcha.
Now, the previous testifier misspoke a little bit. I think that Attorney General memo probably came out last June or something, but she probably didn't know, and I know the board doesn't have folks all over policing folks, but, so she wasn't being illegal because.
I'm teasing.
Yeah,
I'm joking
okay.
about
So-
that.
So, but now she cannot do it because of that.
Now no doctor's going to give her a prescription to do it because he knows it's outside of the scope.
That's correct.
Okay. I'd like to see a copy of that Attorney General.
I
thing.
dropped it
Yeah.
by for you.
Okay.
I'll bring you
Well, I've
another
got
one
a
if you
few
need, but I did bring one
piles of
by.
stuff on my desk. If you've been in there, I hadn't read them all yet, but
Okay,
I'll get to it over the weekend.
Well, okay.
Thank you. Any questions? All righty. Appreciate your testimony. You're very educational to us.
Thank you.
All right. Does Joshua Saul or Keenan Kung really got anything additional that we hadn't heard? Y'all got any new perspectives? Okay. I'm going to call, I'm sorry, Joshua, if you just hang tight. She was actually ahead of you anyway. Let's try to keep this to a couple minutes. We got lots of other legislators here with other bills.
Hi, my name is Kisan Kang. I'm acupuncturist and practicing Alpharetta, Georgia. I'm going to be very quick, short. Just to show you this needle we call acu. Acu means a needle in Latin word. Puncture is a needle. Dry needling use the same needle. They puncture the skin. Don't tell me apple is not apple. Apple is apple. Dry needling is acupuncture. And because dry needling it's not acupuncture and we don't need the education, well, we have to study more than 2,000 hours after 4 years of college to finish the school because it is a very good modality of treatment. Also, it can be dangerous. That's why we spend a lot of hours in this education. And then I just want to mention quickly, one of my patients said her massage therapist want to do dry needling because she learned dry needling over the weekend. So do you want me to do dry needling? And she said, no. So weekend course and doing dry needling, they want to hold this needle and try to, treat people. So if you allowed, this is just 26 hours of occupational therapist do dry needling, every licensed or whatever occupation people, they will do dry needling because so it's easy to get 26 hours. Everybody will do that. Georgia is the first state allowed the physical therapy do dry needling and it spread whole United States. Same on us. We, as acupuncturists in Georgia, we feel very bad about it. But at the time, we didn't have a power, we didn't have many people. Now, if OT does that, in here, Georgia, it will spread out the United States. And then it might spread the whole world. It is not safe. You have to prepare proper education training to treat people. It's not ethical. It is, if dogs understand human language, they will laugh of this matter. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Joshua Saul, last speaker. Then we're going to move on.
Thank you. Appreciate you letting me speak here, and I'll keep it brief as well. I think it's really important here, to recognize that this isn't really a scope creep issue for us. We're not all here taking time out of our practice to come here because we're worried that OTs are going to take business away from us. I think we can all agree there's no shortage of sick people. A lot of people, need this therapy. We are here because it's a safety issue. The state of Georgia, when they wrote the Practice Act for acupuncture, were very clear. You have to go to a graduate school. It's now a doctoral program after an undergraduate. You have to pass 3 national boards. You have to do clean needle training. And in order to do this, and we're bypassing all of the standards that were set by the state of Georgia. The response that no one's complained about dry needling is only is not actually true. We formed this arrangement here with our organizations in response to the fact that physical therapists were allowed to do dry needling with minimal training. It's not really about not giving people access to dry needling. She made a really great point. What are you going to do in North Georgia? It's a problem. But the training of 26 hours is not anywhere close. A medical doctor must have 300 hours in the state of Georgia. Now we're saying that a medical doctor's training of 300 hours is not even appropriate. I mean, now you can do it with 26 hours. I mean, I understand that they get a lot of training as well. OTs,
Medical
PTs,
doctors have to get 300 hours training to do dry
to
needling?
practice dry needling.
Okay.
Okay.
And a physical therapist has, how much? 50 for a physical therapist.
50 hours.
Okay.
And they tried to lower that also to 25, and we brought all of this same paperwork to that conversation to explain it's not enough.
All right.
So, I think if dry needling wants to be practiced by anyone other than acupuncturists who have had to meet all of this training, they should at least match the same benchmark training that medical doctors are required to get.
How many
for
hours
safety.
training you guys have to get to be an acupuncturist?
We get a doctoral degree. In that program, we get about 1,365 supervised clinical hours where someone is looking at us while we're doing the actual acupuncture.
You think that's too much?
If you'd asked me in school, I would have said yes.
I'm not joking. I'm being dead
No,
serious. Why would you have to have that much, 3 times as much as a medical doctor? Is it because where you are puncturing people is more dangerous?
There are a lot of nuances to using needles in this area. We're not talking about pneumothorax here on the chest. Most people don't have a chest muscle that's bothered here. Everybody here probably has some sore neck muscles. Yep. The most common way to get a pneumothorax is to go through that muscle right into the top part of the lungs. Who's teaching that? We understand where the lungs are, but that I had someone specifically say, don't go at this angle. You have to do this and only this depth to prevent that from happening.
Okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's
All
okay. So, at the very least, it's a major danger without the education. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with us. And all of you taking your time out of your days. It's what helps make our system work as we learn from the public, people impacted by these various issues. Boy, we sure got the issues in this committee too. All kind of good stuff. That's going to conclude our testimony on this House Bill 809. And we're going to move on down our list, see if we can knock out a couple other bills here before we leave. I've got some folks here that have been waiting. Representative Collins, you still with me? Hang on. Come on. I don't see yours as being too complicated. We might actually take action on it if I got a quorum left. We're on House Bill 1190, back up to the prearranged order, and I'm making sure your
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
mic is working there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I, too, like to fly Delta Airlines, if that helps anyway. House Bill 1190 has been kind of a vision of mine for a while. I have had numerous constituents and talking with colleagues in the House that have called us about professional licensing in the Secretary of State's office and how they've had applications that have met all the requirements, but they're sitting on the desk of these different boards to issue these licenses. So what this bill would allow would, after 60 days of an applicant submitting a professional license to the Secretary of State's office, after 60 days, if the board has not met or they have not acted on the application, if the applicant satisfies all the necessary requirements, then the division director shall be authorized to issue that license. A lot of boards that I've come to find out are having trouble with quorums and not meeting on a timely basis. And I know that the House and the Senate have joined together to expedite the licensure of a lot of different groups, mostly veterans' families, spouses of veterans. What this bill does is, I like to say that it helps the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. It helps everyone out there that needs a little help, and helps the licensure process more expeditiously occur for the benefit of our constituents. If the boards are meeting like they're supposed to, there'll be no change in that posture. But this is simply lines 12 through 16. Just says after 60 days, if the applicant meets all of the standards and is a candidate for licensure, that the division secretary will issue that license.
All right. For once, a simple bill.
Yeah.
Or is it? Let's hear Maggie Hasty from the Secretary of State's office.
Hey, good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. This is a simple bill, I promise. We want to just speak in favor of this bill. We want to thank Chairman Collins for bringing this bill forward. This is something that we're definitely in favor of. It's going to get Georgians to work a lot quicker and kind of cut out some of that red tape that we're experiencing.
So you don't think they're eating into your turf by them going ahead and granting them if your folks
No,
can't get to
this
it?
would kind of help our turf a lot. So we kind of host the boards, and this would allow for our employees down in Macon to approve those unambiguous licenses. So if there's any questions, we can kick it to the boards, but this would, for all those people who have met the requirements and done their due diligence, get those people into work.
Any questions by committee members? This one's simple enough. I'm willing to take action if it's the desire of the committee. Anybody have a motion on this bill? That's a move to pass. And that is House Bill 1190, LC 365719. Is there a second? I already got one. Senator Harbison's a second. Any discussion or proposed amendments? All in favor, raise your hand. Got just enough for a quorum. Any opposed? All right, your bill passes. Do you have anybody to carry this for you in the Senate?
I'd like for the new freshman Senator Bearden to carry that, if that'd be okay. He's my senator, and
Well, if
he's
in
been properly
agreement,
house trained.
we'll sign him up. Thank you. Appreciate you being with me today, and I appreciate your patience in waiting as we
And Mr.
plow
Chairman,
through a little work.
this will probably be my last time coming before this committee, because I'm hanging it up after this term, but I appreciate working with each and every one of you, and look forward to
Well,
our
that's
past
disappointing to
crossings.
us. We wish you Godspeed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Representative Perkle, House Bill 1294. This is the gas pipeline bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
this is a
sir.
pretty
Speaking of
simple one,
short
too.
timers, pretty simple
Yeah,
bill.
this is good.
Yes, sir. Natural gas capacity.
Go right ahead.
Okay,
You're
I wanted to make sure that
You
you're
got it.
okay. HB 1294. Natural gas capacity is one of the pinch points in economic development in a lot of parts of the state. So this is comes to the recommendation of the Rural Development Council. We heard this echoed as we went around the state within the RDC. Some communities have zero excess capacity to attract good-paying jobs, while some areas have no natural gas access at all. Senator Summers and myself, we serve a portion of the state that has zero excess capacity. We cannot add another good, high-paying jobs, heavy industry that needs natural gas in our area because the capacity is just not there. This bill merely provides the authorization for GFA to provide financing for natural gas projects for cities and counties across the state. It's a natural extension of their mission, providing financing opportunities, cities and counties for water, sewer, solid waste infrastructure that they currently do and do a great job. There are, in fact, opportunities for the conversion of solid waste into natural gas in a symbiotic, that is a $10 word, system. I can't imagine a more important program growth need than natural gas availability in the most economically distressed parts of the state. And I would urge you to help me with this bill.
So all this does is allow GFA to make grants or loans for this purpose?
Yes, sir.
A very good presentation. Any
Thank you.
questions by committee members? I do have one person signed up to speak, my old buddy Neil Herring. Neil, if you'll take the podium up there, let's hear your views.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Neil Herring, representing the Georgia chapter of the Sierra Club. We oppose this bill. This expansion of the mission of GFA is a a serious bloating of that mission. Those people have got to build water and sewer for a whole lot of people moving to Georgia. The governor has put in $250 million. It's probably not enough. And adding another job is just unwelcome at this time, in my opinion. Also, the natural gas industry is very well fixed. Georgia Power Company bought the Atlanta Gas Company. They have hundreds of millions of dollars available for investment. Y'all passed a bill through here that let the Georgia Gas South, EMC, Cobb EMC, raise the amount of money they contribute to that gas company, and they told you that they are in the business of pushing gas anywhere they can get it. They have been purchasing municipal gas systems. But Talbotton, they bought Talbotton. Why would anybody buy anything at Talbotton? That's what Woodall said. He knows about Talbotton. But
how is this bad? I mean, our citizens need gas to heat.
I know they need gas. I know they need gas, but they're getting it from the gas company. They don't need the state to provide their gas. They can get it from the gas company. They're running gas lines down highways in South Georgia to cook wood chips to send to England to burn in coal plants. That's gas fired. They were talking about that mine at the Okefenokee. That guy was going to boil off 1.4 million gallons of water a day. He's going to do it with gas. You can get gas anywhere you want it if you've got a need for it. You have to have a customer. The idea that gas is going to magnetically attract business to locations is unrealistic. That's all. Nothing else.
I want you to tell us how you really feel now. Love your passion. Senator Harbison, you got a question. You recognize.
Did I understand you say Talbotton?
Yes, Talbotton.
My city.
Your city.
Yes, sir. Be careful now.
Your gas company was purchased, your municipal gas company was purchased by a profit-making gas company. They're in the gas business. The gas business is expanding on its own. They don't need the state. Alberton didn't need GFA to get the gas.
All right, I understand your bill. I want to percolate. You're going to be back on the calendar on Thursday for possible action. I got to just hear these other bills and make sure I'm not missing anything.
Could I just tell you that I disagree with what he just said?
I gathered that. I deducted that, we'll say. Figured that out on my own.
Okay. All right. There. We need gas for ag and poultry. I like to eat, and so it is desperately needed. It is not true at all that gas is available all over the state. We've got parts of the state that has zero natural gas.
How about Coffee County?
Coffee County has completely used up all of their capacity.
Right.
We can't add another industry. Back in the cold snap, and it wasn't even that cold, about a month ago, if Ashburn and Fitzgerald had not had to use, they didn't have to use all of their allotments, we'd have been out of natural gas in Douglas and Coffee County just a few weeks ago.
And are you able to provide gas to your people down there without a GFA loan or assistance?
We are. It is difficult for municipalities to incur the debt that is required outside of low-interest loans from GFA. That would be exceedingly helpful.
And is that what GFA's doing, really giving loans, just passing through a low interest rate, or are they giving outright grants for these
They
type
do
of
both.
projects?
We've done that with some of our sites that we've seen, some of our economic development sites, maybe on the coast. We've seen some both low-interest loans and grants in the water and sewer area in that part of the state.
All right.
Thank you.
Senator, thank you for being here with us.
All right.
Appreciate you. All right, we're gonna make it. What do we got next here? House Bill 444. Representative Dempsey is back, becoming quite the fan of our committee. 441. Sorry, I didn't have my glasses on. Go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This bill authorizes and regulates the practice of teledentistry in Georgia by Georgia licensed oral health care team members, particularly in our rural and underserved areas of our state. It puts in code that teledentistry places it into Georgia law as first practice under an executive order during the COVID-19 pandemic, which will help truly in some of our most underserved areas. It also will help create a network of dentists within Georgia that allows providers to share workforce and gives Georgians better access to oral health care, particularly in our Title I schools and assisted living facilities. And that's pretty much what the bill does. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Yes, sir.
All right, Chairman Summers, you're recognized for a question.
I know you got this at a hearing on it, but if it'd be properly, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask him to make this a motion.
If it's that simple, does anybody have questions? I don't have anybody signed up to testify for or against it. I see the dentist lobbyist. Are y'all okay? Is there any conflict? We got your pass out? I'm receptive to a motion then.
Motion approved.
All right, we got a motion do pass and a second. Any discussion or any proposed amendments for that? All right. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? You have to put me down as a yes vote to make sure we have 6 yeses. Your bill passes. Do you have a sponsor in the Senate?
I do, and I thank you for moving this along as we get to these final hours.
Some of
too.
these I thought were more complicated than they were when I put them down. I want to make sure we heard them before I
Thank
tinker
you,
with
Chairman.
them. but
It's
that's-
Senator Still will be
All right,
carrying
Sean
that.
Still.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for being
Thank
with
you.
us. Representative Williams, Al Williams, Southeast Georgia.
I got stiff there, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of this
You
committee.
got the last one, House Bill 349.
Believe me, this will be the simplest one you've had today.
Wow.
This is House Bill 349, LC 365806S.
Must
And
be simple. Nobody signed up to talk on it.
all righty,
Except you.
all the members of the Baldhead Caucus decided to give in and not show up.
All right. Oh, I remember this bill now. Okay.
Except a couple of, but we have, this is just a mobile barbershop bill. All it does is authorizes the legalization of mobile barbershops in Georgia. There will be no reduction in requirements from a health and safety standpoint, and that's really it. You will not be able to open it without all of the necessary sanitary equipment.
Any questions for this simple bill? I was going to ask a question, but I think that we got a pretty strong committee here.
pretty
Any
strong.
discussion? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. I'm glad you stayed for it. All right. All right, it is unanimous. I did have a question.
Yes, sir.
Just informational, so I know what's happening. Why was this ever prohibited? Is
You'll
there
never
somebody-
believe this, but I introduced this bill 12 years ago. And it has taken 12 years to get, very honestly, the department to agree.
Well, don't they go to like nursing homes and things already?
Yes, but they don't do it outside. They come inside with permission to cut. But the thing is, it's the only thing left in Georgia. You can't do mobile. You can do your dogs. You can
Oh,
eat.
yeah, I do.
You can do x-rays. You can do everything in Georgia but get a simple haircut. I wished I knew. I used to have hair when I introduced this bill.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank
And do you have a sponsor over here in the Senate to carry it?
No, I've had so many people that want to help me until I
I'm
was
quite sure
didn't want to show any partiality, but I will leave it to your wise
All right.
discretion.
I'm going to carry it for you. Put that thing.
Thank you,
down there.
Mr.
We're gonna
Chairman.
take care of you. All right. Appreciate it. Thank everybody for your attention. We will be meeting on Thursday afternoon. That meeting's at 2 o'clock, and it is more time limited. Don't know yet what we're going to put on there. I'm hoping to go back and let's take action on some of these bills that we've now heard. There are a couple other sort of complicated subjects we may have some hearings on as well. This meeting is adjourned. Thank everybody for your attendance and for sticking it out.